back. Now I gotta do another video. Now in this video I'm gonna talk about it's gonna be Sex Talk 101 episode 65. And in this episode I'm gonna talk about what happens when a man runs into a woman that he hasn't went to high school and college with 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, or extreme cases 25 to 30 years later. That's my new old saying. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So when a lot of guys say, well, all the women that don't like me, all the women that say they don't find you physically, sexually attractive, that you went to high school and college with, they do come back and they do resurface 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, or extreme cases 25 to 30 years later. Now I'm here to kind of make another video to explain to you that just because you see a woman that you went to high school or college with come back 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, or 25 to 30 years later, that doesn't mean she find you physically, sexually attractive. What that means is she's only coming back because she's hit the wall. She's hit the wall at stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1 is where they're getting 31, 32, 33, 34 years old, and what's happening is that woman particularly is not getting asked out to lunch and dinner as much. Men don't find her physically, sexually attractive like they used to, and she realizes she has to settle down and get some kids by a man. So that's what stage 1 of the wall is. Stage 2 kind of shows more of why the woman's coming back to you to begin with, because there's 2 stages to the wall. And what no one talks about the wall is that when women hit the wall, why all of a sudden these women resurface? Why these women just come back all of a sudden? So we're going to explain that in this YouTube video. You see, what you have to understand is when women are from the ages of 18 to 29, they have a lot of power and a lot of control at their disposal. Perhaps we can argue they have too much power, too much control, and they always go after the wrong type of men intentionally on purpose. They go after guys that play basketball, football. They go after guys that are R&B singers, rappers, rock stars, actors, filmmakers. And then there are times where they go after guys that are businessmen. And I'm here to explain that part of the video. See, when these women are from the ages of 30 years old to 65, so women in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, a lot of times I would say 85 to 90% of the time these women come back primarily because they're not able to return back to what they once was. You know, she used to be the fine-ass cheerleader, or she used to be fine on the dance team, or she used to be that fine supermodel, or that fine swimsuit model. And this is universal, so it doesn't matter if it's black women, white women, Mexican women, women in general, okay? Some people might think I'm woman bashing. I'm not woman bashing. I'm being very logical and telling men from the ages of 18 to 35 what to watch out for. Now, when a woman that you haven't seen in high school and college come back, a lot of times it's because she's in a financial situation and she needs someone to help her with her financial situation. These be the same women that start that feminist bullshit. I don't need no man. You know, that ignorant bullshit. You know, and they'll talk that bullshit for 10 years. They're 30 years old. It's 15 years. They're 35. Okay, it's 20 years. They're 40 years old. It's 25, they're 45 years old. Oh, it's 30 years later, they're 50 years old. So you get a lot of women in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s that you haven't seen for a long time since your days in high school and college. And 85 to 90% of the time, a lot of these black women, white women, Mexican women have kids. They might have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, 6 kids. And a lot of times these females run across you. It doesn't matter where they run into you. It could be the movie theater, it could be the park, it could be the gym, It could be coming home from work. You could be going to the grocery store or go to McDonald's or Burger King, and you'll run into the woman. And the woman will say hi to you, and a lot of times she's trying to see what the fuck she can get away with. This is when hypergamous is at its finest. That means a woman will be trying to do anything she can to try to snag a man. And then what it is when women are from the age of 18 to 29, they're stuck on looks. Women want you to find ways to make, why should I take you? So women want men that are physically, sexually attractive. So that's why they always say looks. When a woman loses her looks, she changes her priorities from looks to, I want a man that has money. So if you have a house, the only reason why you're getting some pussy is because you have a house. If you have an apartment, the only reason why you're getting pussy is because you have an apartment. If you get a car, the only reason why you're getting pussy is because you have a car. If you have 2 jobs or 3 jobs, the only reason why you're getting pussy is because you have 2 jobs, you have 3 jobs. If someone tries to be funny and be a smart ass and say, what if I have 4 jobs? Again, the only reason why you're getting pussy is because you have 4 jobs. If you have your own company, your own small little private business, the only reason why you're getting some pussy is because you have your own small company, your own business. Now, the minute that your private business, your private company goes out of business, that girl goes bye-bye, see you later. The minute your car gets repossessed and taken away, bye-bye, see you later. The minute you lose your 2 jobs, or you get fired from your 2 jobs, or you get fired from 3 jobs, or you get fired from 4 jobs, the girl goes bye-bye, see you later. The girl does this. The minute you get evicted and kicked out of your apartment, the girl goes bye-bye, see you later. And the minute if you lose your house, bye-bye, see you later. So in that technical terms, women don't find you physically, sexually attractive when you ain't seen these women 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years later. What it is if you got a house, basically you're just being used because you have a house. If you have an apartment, you're just being used because you have an apartment. If you have a car, you're just being fucking used because you have a car. If you have 2 jobs or 3 jobs or 4 jobs, you're just being used because you have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, or 4 jobs. If you got your own company, you're just being used because you have your own company. It's hypergamous at its finest. And these are going to be women that are 30 years old, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old doing this. And these are women that you went to high school and college with. So when a lot of guys be talking about, yeah, man, I got that girl from high school back in the day, ask yourself one question. Back in the day, if we had a time machine and you went back to the past 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago, that woman would never give you her phone number. That woman would never let you ask her out to lunch and dinner. That woman would never have sex with you. So a lot of times when guys be talking shit and they be bragging, a lot of times you got to ask themselves, did you get the girl when you was in high school and college? And about 85 to 90% of the time the answer is no. And they'll say, well, I got her now. And then you say this. You only got her because you have a house. You only got the girl because you have an apartment. You only got the girl because you have a car. You only got the girl because you have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs. You only have the girl because you have your own business. If you don't have none of those things, then the girl don't ever show up in the picture. And these are for men that have been rejected 5 times, 15 times, 20 times. I've been rejected 100 times. And 80% of the men don't know this information because these guys don't bother to go onto the internet and learn from people that actually tell the truth. And I'm not talking about those punk-ass pickup artists or those punk-ass dating coaches that charge thousands of dollars to learn pickup and then you never learn the shocking truth. This is the shocking truth. This is the painful reality of it all. So whenever you be asking yourself why a guy pump and dump a woman, the reason why the guy is pumping and dumping the woman, because it's the principle of respect. You didn't want to talk to me in high school and college, so now it's 10 years later and you're 30 years old with 3 kids or 4 kids or 5 kids, and you want me to overlook your flaws and feel sorry for you. Or it's 15 years later, it's 20 years later, and you want me to be in a relationship with you. Now let's talk about that part. Now, this happens a lot. A lot of guys think that once they get the girl from high school and college, despite the fact that it's 10 years later, 15 years later, or 20 years later, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years later, they think they're gonna get some sex. That's usually 50-50. That means it's a 50% chance you might get sex from the girl, and it's a 50% chance you may not get sex from the girl. There's a thing called sexless relationships. Yeah, I'm in a relationship, but I ain't getting no sex. And then they might say, how long you been in a relationship with this girl that rejected you back in the day from high school and college? Oh, I've been in a relationship for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So then you get somebody like me that's an asshole and say, let me get this straight, dog. You've been in a relationship with a girl for 5 years that rejected you from back in the day in high school and college, and for 5 years you ain't got no ass. Then there's what they call sexless marriages, where you've been married for 5 years, you've been married for 10 years, and you don't get no pussy. And the same thing, you get somebody like me that's an asshole, and you would probably say, oh, I've been in a marriage for a long time, like, so you ain't getting no pussy? This happens a lot. Now, when you're in a sexless relationship, what happens is you start looking at other women. And then as a result, you cheat on the girl because the girl ain't giving you no sex. You know, you're mad because I got a house or an apartment, I got a car, I got 2 jobs, I got 3 jobs, and you ain't giving me no sex. You know, I'm paying for everything, but you're not giving me no sex. And again, you're just being used. And that shows right there hypergamous at its finest. So when women be asking why men cheat, this is usually one of the primary reasons why a man cheats in a sexless relationship. It's also the same reason why a man cheats in a sexless marriage, because he's been cheated out of a golden opportunity. Now, most women don't see nothing wrong with that. Most women be like, well, you got a girlfriend, so what's the problem? The problem is he got rejected and it was 10 years later. It's 15 years later. It's 20 years later. Extreme cases, it's 25 to 30 years later. And he's getting women that's in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, and he can't bring home to his parents and grandparents a woman that has kids by another man, because he don't have no kids, but those kids are not his, they're someone else's kids. And there's only 5 scenarios that you get as a man. Scenario number 1, you get women that are fat and out of shape. You get women that are 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, and you may not like fat women that's fat and out of shape. And if you open your mouth and say, I don't like fat women, then by the law of feminism, you're a sexist pig asshole. I'm just telling you, as an asshole, I'm just trying to explain to you what the problem is if you open your mouth and you speak up on the problem. Scenario number 2, you get women old enough to be your mother and your grandmother. So you get women from the ages of 35 to 65 years old. And if you say, I don't want no 35-year-old woman, I don't want no woman that's 40, 45, or 50, or 55, or 60 years old, then the problem is you're complaining that the woman's too old. And by the law of feminism, you must be a sexist asshole. How about this one? Scenario number 3. She has kids. Well, you don't have no kids. So when you call a little boy your son that's not your son, if you open your mouth and you complain about it, in the eyes and the law of feminism, you must be a sexist asshole, because it ain't your kid, it's someone else's kid, if you make a fucking issue out of it. How about this one? She is ugly. Now, if you start complaining that she's ugly, then people gonna say, so you want her to put on some makeup because you have a problem with the way she look. Oh shit, did I just say the word looks? Did I just say the word looks? Yeah, a lot of women don't like it when you judge them off their looks. But that's funny, because if we take a time machine and we go back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, the woman 85 to 90% of the time judged a man off of his looks. Sounds very hypocritical and full of shit, right? Because it is. Now, how about scenario number 5? She either used to be a slut, or every now and then she still is a slut. And if you open your mouth and you bitch and you complain, in the eyes and the law of feminism, you are a sexist asshole, like me. And I say like me, if you've seen The Dark Knight, you always hear the Joker say, like me. The point that I'm trying to make in this video is, those are the 5 options that you get from a woman when it's 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years later. And the only reason why some men have sex with women that are in their 30s, and their 40s, and their 50s, and their 60s is because they're sexually frustrated. I went 10 years, I ain't get no pussy. I went 15 years, 20 years, I didn't get no pussy. So I'm sexually frustrated. So when people be saying why this man thirsty, why this man is a mangina or a simp, I hate to say it, but the answer is women are the ones responsible for a man being thirsty. So if you reject a man for 10 years, the end result is he's going to be a simp. He's going to be thirsty for the ass. If it's 15 years later or 20 years later and you complain he's so thirsty, you as a woman, it's your fault because you made it that way. Women don't realize they have all the power and all the control. And then when they get older, these women complain that they're single, don't no man ask them out to lunch and dinner, because you made it that way. Ain't no man gonna just sit around 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, and get cheated out of a golden opportunity. You get cheated out of an opportunity when you're in high school, they do it to you again in college, and then when you become an adult, they cheat you again out of an opportunity. That's rude and disrespectful, and that's not fair to men. And you see, if you reject a woman because she has kids, then that's a problem. You tell a woman, well, I don't want to date no fat, overweight woman, that's a problem. You say you're too old, that's a problem. Anything that come out your mouth as a man is a problem. Even though they did the same shit to you, they don't want you to do that. And what society's trying to do is engineer that it's okay for you to have these 5 options, these bad 5 scenarios, and be okay with it. Now, whenever you see a man pump and dump a woman, a lot of times that man is doing it because he wants to send a message to the rest of the women that did him dirty in high school and college. I'm not that guy that you can punk and be a sucker. A sucker is a guy that feels sorry for a girl that did him dirty in high school and college, and he had to go 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, and when he sees the girl, he still likes the girl after all that time has passed by. And that woman knows you're not getting no sex. That woman knows that you're sexually frustrated. Because if she's the only one that's giving you the pussy, she sees power and control in that. Because I'm the only one that's giving you the pussy. And a lot of men don't like that, so what a lot of men start doing is they get a passport and they take their ass to a foreign country and they don't come back. Because ain't no man gonna tolerate it's 10 years later, it's 15 years later, it's 20 years later, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years later, and you think you can just cheat me out of a golden opportunity. There's no such thing of that. So when a lot of men start going to Japan, China, Canada, Mexico, Russia, Germany, Paris, France, London, England, when they start going to countries like that, it's because they want their opportunity. They don't want to take care of another man's kids. They don't want to have to open their mouth and say, oh, you're too fat. Anytime you tell a woman that she's fat, a woman is going to make your life a living hell. Open your mouth and tell a woman, I don't like women that's 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, and watch what the hell happens. You gonna find out what they mean by hell have no fury like a woman scorn. Tell a woman, I don't want no woman with 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. You're gonna find out what they mean by hell have no fury like a woman scorn. Say you're too old and you're old enough to be my mother or my grandmother, and watch what happens to your car. You'll come back and your car will be fucked up. You'll be paying almost thousands of dollars when they fuck your car up. Tell a woman, I don't date ugly women, and find out what happens to your house. They will throw a brick at your glass window. Just open your mouth and just say that. And don't say, well, I don't want to deal with a woman and it's 10 years later, it's 15 years later, it's 20 years later. They'll call you an asshole just like me if you open your mouth and say your honest opinion. Even though if we take a time machine and we go back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or extreme cases 25 to 30 years ago, those women did the same bullshit. It's okay for women to do it, but it's not okay for men to do it. Even if you are physically, sexually attractive, you gotta be careful opening your mouth saying something to a female, because that woman will, that woman might extract some revenge on you just for saying your honest opinion. You might say, what the fuck? It's my honest opinion. Yeah, but in the eyes and the law of feminism, you are a sexist pig asshole if you do say that. So a lot of men don't see that they don't have that many options. And by the time you fast approach 50 years old or 60 years old, a lot of times those men could go into relationships with women, but by the time they're 50 or 60, they don't think it's necessary, because they already know that the end result is, all I'm going to get is those bad 5 options and get cheated out of a golden opportunity. I'd rather just go to a foreign country where I don't get cheated out of an opportunity. Because that's basically what you see now. Now, unless you're a player, unless you just don't mind having sex with any type of female, this video don't pertain to you. So if you're a player and you like having sex with fat women, this video ain't for you. If you like to have sex with women that's in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, this video's not for you. If you don't mind messing with women that have kids, this video is not for you. This video is for men that are angry and furious at the system, that for so long they were told do the right thing, play by the rules, and hard work and dedication will pay off. Well, they did that for 10 years, they did that for 15 years, they did that for 20 years, extreme cases, 25 to 30 years, and none of the hard work paid off. So if you're a player, then you're okay. But this video don't pertain to you if you're a man whore. Ringo TV Raw said a man whore is a guy that just loves to have sex with whores. He don't care if the girl's got all the tattoos, body piercing, she's got kids. The men don't care. The guys that do care are the ones that I'm talking to. The ones that are pissed off at the system, that no matter how much they work, they never get their reward, they never get their prize. That's who I'm talking to. And the reason why I'm doing that is because a lot of men don't like being cheated out of an opportunity. Even if it's women at work or at the gym. A lot of times those women come back 10 years later, 15 years later, and it's the same bullshit. The female will try to use her looks or what's left of it to try to do what? To get you to give over the resources. So that's why a lot of men are starting to pump and dumps. And I already told you in the next 10 to 15 years, a lot of men are just going to start paying for sex because they're not going to tolerate this level of disrespect. And you see, when you get women that watch too much television, too many Hollywood films, and they look at that social media, they think that's important, when in real life that's not important. That's not going to help you pay your car note. That's not going to help you keep the lights on, the gas, the water, or the electricity. That's not going to keep a roof over your head. But you can't tell that to women from the ages of 18 to 25. You can't. You got to wait until they get 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 to tell them that bullshit don't mean nothing. So you can talk to a woman from the age of 18 to 25 if you want to, and you're going to be talking to a brick wall. You know that old saying that the lights is on but nobody's home? That's what you're going to get 90% of the time. Oh, you trying to be my dad. Oh, you just like my grandfather. That's what you're going to get if you do that. So you're better off just not doing that. I promise you, if you make a complaint, if you make an issue out of it, they're going to think you're a sexist asshole just for speaking your honest opinion. That's why a lot of guys, when people ask for their opinions, a lot of guys say, I don't have no comment, or I don't have an answer, or I don't have nothing nice to say. That's why you always see a guy that's 40 years old, 50 years old, or 60 years old say, I actually have an answer, but it's not a nice answer. I don't have no comment. Because every time I say something, it's always the wrong thing. Now that I explained that part of the problem, now let me end the video by saying this. If you do decide to mess with women, just remember that I told you what it is. So when a man be bragging about getting with a girl that's from high school and college, those guys don't realize they're being used. Now, unless you don't care that you're being used because you got a house or an apartment, or you don't care that the girl is using you because you have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, or you got your own company, then that goes in the category of being a player. And I already made a YouTube video telling you what's the difference between being a player and a man that actually wants to be in a relationship. I already made that YouTube video. And I already made the video about nice guys. And yesterday's video was already made. So this video is just to clarify that just because you get with a girl that you went to high school and college with, that doesn't necessarily mean she like you. There's like a small 30-40% chance that a girl that you went to high school and college actually find you physically, sexually attractive. There's like a small percentage of that. So I'm just trying to explain to you that the wall just reveals to you why the girl's coming back. And if you ever ask why a man pump and dump a woman, why have sex with her and then dump her afterwards, pump and dump's not about falling in love. Pump and dump's not really about the sex, even though sex is involved. Pump and dump is about the principle of respect. You didn't respect me in high school and college. I got a job, we got into the workforce, and you still show me no respect. That's what pump and dump's about. So when guys pump and dump women, they do that for the sole purpose of you don't get to come back 10 years later, 15 years later, or 20 years later and then think I'm going to accept your flaws when you never accepted my flaws as a man. So the men that do the pumping and dump are called players. The guys that get angry and mad at the system are guys that are saying, why I got to date a woman with kids? Why can't I date a woman that has no kids? Or you might say, why I gotta date a girl and she's always fat and out of shape? Why can't I get a woman that's in athletic shape? Why I always gotta get a woman that's old? When can I get a woman that's young? Why I gotta get a woman that's ugly when I should get a woman that's beautiful? So this video is for those men. So if you're a player and you just like to have sex with multiple women, this video ain't for you. I have a video, if that's all the fuck you want to do, I have a video that's already made for that. This video is for guys that are pissed off at the system. And I'm explaining to you how to handle it in a better, conductive way. The next YouTube video that I'm going to make is going to be explaining when you should just walk away and don't do shit. This is for guys that want an answer for the problem. The next video is going to be explaining when to just walk away, when to stop talking, when to stop arguing and just walk away. The next video is gonna be more of a concept video that the YouTubers don't talk about, and that is when to just walk away and just leave stuff alone. Now that's not gonna be a Midtown video because I'm gonna explain the difference between when being a Midtown and when to just walk away. Because some people are going to be thinking it's a Midtown video. It ain't a Midtown video. But I'm going to throw Midtown in there for people who might want to be curious what's the difference. Until then, peace.